A very warm welcome to you, everyone. Welcome to Politics Tonight, where we dig and go beyond the headlines for informed analysis of major political stories in Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, raises concerns over rising cases of insecurity in Imo, Kogi and Bayelsa states ahead of the November 11 governorship elections. On the interview segment for today, we focus on President Tinubu's academic record as Atiku heads to Supreme Court with the Nigerian Ambassador to Burundi, Onyeagba, as our guest. Welcome to Politics Tonight. Stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome back to Politics Tonight. Now let's begin with some developments in the polity. President Bola Tinubu has approved the appointment of new team that will serve in the office of the president under the Media and Publicity Directorate with full respect for the tenets of Nigeria's federal character principle and the supremacy of merit. The new team members are Belated as the Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Values and Social Justice, Frederick Uwabufo as the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Engagement, as well as Linda Akibe as the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Strategic Communications. Others are Aliyu Audu as the Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs and Francis Ada Abba as the Personal Assistant to the President on Special Duties. President Tinubu further approved the secondment of Linda Akibe to serve as the Communications Advisor to the President of the ECOWAS Commission. The President tasked the new appointees to uphold the highest standards of decorum and decency in their engagements with the people. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has raised concerns over the rising cases of insecurity in Imo, Kogi and Bayelsa states ahead of the governorship elections there. In a statement signed by the National Commissioner and Chairman of its Information and Voter Education Committee, Sam Olumekun, INEC appealed to political parties and their candidates to avoid actions and utterances capable of heating up the polity. The Commission also noted that only 55% of expected total of 189,180 polling units agents have been uploaded to the designated INEC portal ahead of the election. It urged all parties sponsoring candidates for the elections that are yet to upload a list of their agents to do so before the deadline for the exercise on the 10th of November. A suspended ASP, Drambi Vandi, who was charged with the murder of a Lagos-based lawyer, Omobolanle Rahim, last Christmas, has been sentenced to death by hanging. Justice Abironke Harrison, sitting at the Tafabalewa Square Annex Division of the Lagos State High Court, said his defense that he didn't shoot the deceased has no leg to stand on, and that he alone had the opportunity to shoot the deceased, which resulted in her death. Kemi Folademo reports.
The prosecution presented 11 witnesses, including family members of the deceased and team members of the defendant who witnessed the incident that day. The pathologist said Mrs. Rahim was fired at close range, and the armorer testified that 2 bullets were missing from the defendant's weapon afterwards. The ballistician's report was found to be inconclusive because the defendant's gun, upon examination, had some defects, as the bullet fragments retrieved from the vehicle couldn't be matched with the gun. But the court said the fault will not result in the gun firing itself and that it was the only weapon fired that day. The court found it strange that the defendant, who was the police team lead at the checkpoint, was the only person that didn't hear the loud gunshot heard by the witnesses. The judge accepted the evidence of the deceased sister, who had gone on to hold on to the defendant's shirt after the shooting, as well as bystanders who pointed at him as the shooter.
The prosecution is obviously happy about the results of this conviction, and we hope it will bring a closure for the family of late Mrs. Bolanle Rahim.
The judge has done exactly what he has been sworn in to do, which is the responsibility to deliver justice in good time.
The court said the defendant didn't dispel the evidence that he was seen to have fled into a minibus where he was dragged out from and taken to the hospital Mrs. Rahim was rushed to. Even there, he changed into a mufti and hid under a staircase.
The Spirit of the Lord directed me, and I know He didn't direct me. I did it on pro bono. All of us must not just cast astigation because we have one bad egg and believe all of them are bad.
My Lord even went to the extent of considering the possible innocence of possibility of reduction of sentence of the defendant. But even considering his defense, it was still so watery that there was no other way than to determine the case in favor of the prosecution.
Despite the guilty verdict, the defense counsel says the defendant will consider an appeal. Kemi Foladeyemo, TVC News, Lagos.
Let's take a short break, and when we return, it will be time to speak with our guest of the day, who is the Nigerian Ambassador to Burundi, Onyeagba, for discussion on President Tinubu's academic record as Atiku heads to Supreme Court. Please stay with Politics Tonight. Welcome back. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And now to our interview. I'm joined by the Nigerian Ambassador to Burundi, Onyeagba, for discussion on President Tinubu's academic record as Atiku heads to Supreme Court. He's an economist, diplomat, and astute politician. Onyeagba was appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari as Ambassador Extraordinary of Nigeria to the Republic of Burundi. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador.
Thank you so very much, and a very good evening to you.
Good evening to you too. Now let's move swiftly to the crux of tonight's discussion, which is still trending. That is the Chicago State University saga. What's your own reaction?
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to be with you to discuss this issue once again.
Right.
I have always made it very clear to Nigerians that a thorough understanding of the Nigerian system and a thorough understanding of the US system and the way they keep record will put you in a very good position to be able to analyze issues and draw conclusions. Unfortunately for us in Nigeria, quite a lot of people comment on issues that they have very little information about. And of course, a lot of commentaries you hear on this issue are basically coming from people on different sides of a political divide. So it's a case of, we have found something and therefore this is what needs to happen. I've said this with time and time again. In the US, a diploma basically is issued to anybody that goes to any school whatsoever in the form of testimonial. A diploma is issued, even if you go to any school in the US, say Harvard, for example, and attend a 5-day training program, they will issue you a diploma that says you came here for this kind of program and then you stayed for, X number of days. So this is the issue. I studied in the US, I studied also in Nigeria. So I can tell you authoritatively from the point of view of information of what exists and what doesn't really exist. In the US, diploma is not even compulsory that you pick it up at the end of your study. As a matter of fact, a lot of people finish school and they walk away because they know that whenever their academic records are required, officially and legally, their transcript is going to be sent. So that's the reason why you see a lot of people don't even, pick it up. And that's why in the case of, in this CSU case that is going on, you saw the school sending a lot of copies to say that, these people haven't even picked it up. It basically shows the extent of non-importance that they attach to this document. I was, I studied, my master's and my PhD was in the US. And I totally understand these issues. And I said it before that I remember when I finished my master's, there's something they call commencement, which is what we call graduation in Nigeria. During commencement, everybody was presented with a blank copy of a diploma. And I remember going to the registrar to say, no, I need my diploma because I need to get back to Nigeria. I need to file it in my office and so on and so forth. And he said, listen, we don't even produce this document. We have agents we have vendors that provide it for us. So, and we do that in batches. So what happens is that if you need to have your own as quickly as possible, then here is the agent's email, here is their number, talk to them, they're going to provide you with the diploma, and so they can meet your timeline, and you pay them. And you can also design it the way you want it. If you want it to be, if you want an apostille on it, you pay for it. If you want it notarized, you pay for it. If you want your picture on it, any kind of design you want, you put on it so that that's whatever purpose it solves for you. And basically what happens is that people use these things, they frame it and they keep it in their houses and so on and so forth. So what has happened in this issue is that a lot of facts has been misrepresented, and people basically will cash in on it. If you don't understand the American system and understand that not so much important is that this is just a ceremonial document, you will, conversely, what we have in Nigeria is a situation or a system where our certificates are security documents, usually printed by the Nigeria Security Printing and Minting. And what you find is that a lot of attachment, a lot of importance goes with these certificates, and that's why anytime anybody talk about a certificate in Nigeria, everybody is saying no. This is as important as whatever you can think of. And conversely, this is not basically what happens in the U.S. So this is the issue that we need to appreciate in the first instance. Another misinformation that I also find is the fact that people are saying that a certificate was forged, when in the actual sense of it, I have read the document over and over again. At no point actually was the word forgery used. What happens in the US is that they prepare these things and they send it out, and they don't even keep copies for themselves. The American system is such a system that keeps information electronically. And whenever you want them, they just go and print them out in the form of, these are your records, these are the courses you attended, these are your grades on this document, and that's basically what they feel that this is the, these are the official documents. And it's funny, actually, when you get to the US, anybody that studied in the US or that lives in the US will not even engage you in any issue when you talk about, a diploma has been forged, a diploma hasn't been forged. And that's actually not the right word that also came from the mouth of the person of the registrar of the school that came for deposition. However, I also do not think that there's anything wrong with the former vice president heading to the Supreme Court. It's within his rights. You run for an elections, and the law of the land has laid out procedures for you to be able to, follow, procedures for you to follow to be able to get to whatever you want at the end of the day.
All right, Ambassador, I hear you. And this explanation is very simple for anyone to understand. But why do you think there is this suspicion over this whole matter, especially when the Chicago State University has identified President Tinubu as their product and authenticated his certificate?
Well, this is politics, and usually the kind of politics we practice both from opposition perspective is that, you have to find something. You have to find something that you must, tell people to be able to keep yourself or keep yourself relevant in preparation towards the next elections. That's the only thing I find here. And of course, here, the nature of politics we also play is such that, if I didn't support a candidate and that candidate eventually wins, any kind of story I need to tell the people, against that candidate is obviously, what I find here. However, like I said, whenever a matter is in court, the most respectful thing to do or respectable thing to do is to let the courts do their work. I am not in any way trying to comment on these issues because this matter is in court. I'm only trying to find a way to explain, having studied in the United States and also having studied in Nigeria, bringing out the differences in the way and manner, these things are perceived in these two countries so that Nigerians will understand it. Because if you don't, you will only analyze issue based on the prism through which you see them. But if you want to have a balanced opinion, you can say, okay, how is this done here? How is this done here? Then you can be able to see what the differences are, see what is obtainable, and then you can be able to draw your conclusions without so much confusion around. I see it as politics. I see it as quite a lot of people that didn't vote for the president basically trying to justify their position or trying to find something that they can hang on his neck and say that this is the reason, therefore this has to happen. In any case, the jurisdiction of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal is to deal with electoral issues. And we also have a law. The laws of, we are a nation that is governed by a constitution. So whatever issues that anybody find, including that, whatever information that they think they've gotten, it's the most sensible thing to do is to take them to court and allow the court take their decision. Any commentaries on this issue, as far as I'm concerned, is sub judice. So I don't, I'm not, party to the people that are trying to heat up the system or trying to justify that this is correct or this. Just take whatever you find, take it to the court and then let the Supreme Court take a decision. We know what are pre-election issues, we know what are election issues, and I believe that at the end of the day, justice will be done to these issues.
All right, but if CSU took responsibility for the discrepancies in its documents and blamed it on clerical error, why do you think people are finding this hard to believe?
Well, like I said, if you remember when Obama was the president of America, he presented a certificate that shows that he was born in the United States. And up until today, there are still some people that still don't believe that that is correct. So you will not force anybody to believe what, even when it is proven to them in black and white. We see these things happening. A few things were very clear from the deposition that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu graduated from CSU with honors. In 1979. This is very clear. The issue of discrepancies in mail, they clearly said that he's a male. They clearly even took responsibility for the typographical errors that that came up as a result of sex and date of birth, and which they alluded to say that these things are actually imputed by individuals. So it's actually prone to error. So as far as I'm concerned, like I said, the understanding originally, I can tell you, even having discussed with quite a lot of members of the opposition parties, that the president never went to school in the first instance. So now that they have seen that he truly went to school, they have to move on to some other thing. Even when this is cleared by the Supreme Court, somebody will also come up with something. So, like I said, it's not what people believe or how they choose to see things is really their responsibility. From the point of view of a leader, what you need to do is to do your part, and whatever people perceive is fine. You cannot force them, because we've seen, this issue happen even in developed countries. So how much less us that are also struggling to get to the level we are the likes of mature democracy. So it's not an issue for me. These matters are very clear. And I'm hoping that the justices of the Supreme Court will do justice to this. Between now and maybe sometime in November or early December, this matter will be done and dusted. But I believe that the president should be supported and should be allowed to focus on bringing the dividends of democracy to the Nigerian people.
All right. So, another angle to this issue is the Nigerians bombarded the Chicago State University for information, which became some sort of embarrassment and harassment. How do you think this could have been better handled?
Unfortunately, there is nothing differently we would have done to this. And I tell you, the man said that they get an average of 5 to 30 emails per day requesting for information on Mr. President. 5 to 30 emails per day. And you can rightly conclude that these are emails or inquiries that are coming from the opposition. And, for all you care, the question would be, why haven't they come clean or come open with the information that the universities have been sending them? It's because each time they send this email, they get a response that is in the positive. That's the reason why. You've never had anybody say that they sent an email to CSU, Chicago State University, and then it came back negative. So much so that the university had to prepare a template for responding to emails that are coming from Nigerians with respect to this issue. So if thousands of emails have been sent and all of their responses came in the positive, that's why you wouldn't say that any opposition, anybody made a noise to say that these are evidences of the emails that they sent. Have you not tried or asked yourself, why haven't they raised this issue to say that they sent an email? Thousands of emails have been sent to CSU on a daily basis, and they always get this response that are in the positive, and that's why nobody's talking about it. If the registrar of CSU didn't come to say that these are the number of emails that they are getting in this case, how would you know? So my take on it is that there has been a lot of efforts from a lot of fronts trying to discredit the certificate or the records of Mr. President. That's obviously what I can conclude. Can you stop them? Absolutely no. They have done what they need to do or what obviously satisfies their quest. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that these records are already out in the open. And if there's anything anybody find, you take it to the court and the court will take a decision. We're a nation that is ruled by law. And at the end of the day, it's important that records are kept the way they are, because I was actually asking myself, if you want a lot more information or clarity, even at the point of cross-examining the registrar, you would have asked, do you guys have third-party agents that are legally authorized to issue this? Why didn't that question come up? So that you can actually block every kind of, assuming that this question that I asked came up, you would have had a very clear response that would have told you whether this is right or wrong, because they would have said, oh, no, we don't. We only issue it by ourselves. Then if the issue of a third-party, vendor, you have foreclosed that part entirely. But like I said, it's important that Nigerians allow any matter in court to follow its course and then get to a conclusion. However, the documents are there. The naysayers will always, read the document, and I also had something like it's a Nigerian thing to forge certificates. Where on earth and how did we come to this conclusion, for crying out loud? This is not anything that was mentioned, but this is the conclusion that people drew. However, we have forgotten that we are in a nation where we certify documents. If you lose the papers to your company registration, you can go to CAC and get a certified through copy of that document. If you lose your certificate of occupancy for your property, for example, you can go to whoever that is the governor that signed it. They're not going to give you another original. All they need to do is to get a copy of what they have issued you, and they stamp it as the certified through copy of the original. Okay. So it is a Nigerian thing to have documents certified, and I think it's very clear that a lot of Nigerians understand this. This is what the registrar was alluding to, that to certify documents seems to be a Nigerian thing, and it is true. If you go to Foreign Affairs, for example, there's a department that authenticates documents as well. So if you lose your marriage certificate, you can go and get a copy and certify it, and it will be acceptable. Those that are going to court to contest electoral issues will go to INEC to get a result or get some sheets that they will stamp certified through copies that they will use to present their case in court. So there is nothing wrong with what the man has said. He never mentioned that it is a Nigerian thing to forge results. He mentioned that it's a Nigerian thing to request for certification. And I think that this information needs to be out there so that people don't believe the wrong thing. And the beauty of it is that this information is already out there. So anybody can read it and make of it what they will. But of course, the courts are there to help us apply justice to this issue.
All right, Ambassador, so for the purpose of, better knowledge, especially on this situation and some of the that may come up in the future, what can foreign missions do in this kind of situation to address quest for information in matters like this?
Oh, thank you very much. First of all is that, from diplomatic perspective, I've also had a lot of people, bombard questions as to how the, international community will perceive Nigeria on this issue. First of all is that as a matter of rule, you are not expected to dabble with the politics of any country. The internal politics is the internal politics. For example, I'm Nigeria's envoy to Burundi. I can't come here and start, getting involved or commenting on issues, the internal politics of a country. That's totally unacceptable, and no country actually will take that. So from that point of view, everybody is clear on what they are supposed to be doing. However, with respect to issues of how do missions help in addressing this kind of issues, it's not a normal issue. When I studied in the US, for example, they requested that I send them my certificate anyway from University of Nigeria, so they said they have no business with that certificate. That what they require is my transcript. And not only am I allowed to send the transcript to them, I was asked to send that transcript to a company called West that evaluates transcripts. Nigeria's GPA is 5.0. America's GPA is 4.0. So I had to send my transcript to West. West had to evaluate the transcript and converted it to what the American system will understand. So this is obviously what happens. The education system is different in both countries. And like I said, if you have been exposed to disinformation, then your appreciation of what is going on will become a lot easier for you. So as far as we're concerned, foreign missions have no business with. The foreign missions can authenticate document for you, which is obviously done at the Foreign Affairs headquarters, Ministry of Foreign Affairs headquarters. What the missions will obviously do will be a go-between to help you deal with issues. But issues relating to Nigerians having studied abroad and the kind of papers they have legally official, those are actually private issues that the missions have no business with whatsoever.
All right, so because this case now has some sort of international dimension, what impact do you think it will have on Nigeria's global reputation?
Well, I've mentioned this before. You know, again, that under normal circumstances, every country is actually on their own with respect to politics. We're a sovereign nation. Whatever happens to us is a political issue between the ruling party or the president and the opposition party. That's obviously the way everybody will see this. I don't, a lot of people have argued that, once there's this suspicion, there is this and there is that. But I believe that the information available to the public is enough to indicate that there shouldn't actually be any source of worry. However, like I said, you wouldn't stop anybody from having and drawing any kind of conclusion. I mean, the information is there. Like I said earlier on, whoever that wants to use it in the negative can. Whoever that also wants to use it in the positive can. But at the end of the day, the law courts are there to help us, bring clarity to some of these issues. As far as we're concerned, Nigeria is a is a country that is respected both within the continent and outside the continent, regionally and internationally. So I believe that the president has rolled out his foreign policy and trying to retool the foreign policy to be able to attract investment into the country. I think his doctrine is what he called the 4D, looking at supporting the democracy across the length and breadth of Africa, ensuring that there is development and foreign direct investments coming to the country. And the other one is also paying attention to our diaspora and improving consular services that we offer our country. And of course, the last one is demography, using the size of the nation, the population, the young population, using our numbers to be able to make a case that Nigeria will be in the table at the highest level of representation of a whole lot of international organizations, so that our voices can be heard. So this is very clear as far as we're concerned, and we are hoping that that trajectory. The president, as you have seen, some of the shuttle diplomacy he has been involved in, you can see that he's already hit the ground running as far as foreign policy is concerned. I'm not very sure that after the Supreme Court judgment, there will be more issues that will come up. Like I said, there are election issues, there are pre-election issues. When you find a pre-election issue, you wait when it's time for that, you deal with that. When there are elections, you deal with the election issues. And by the time the Supreme Court gives its judgment, I'm sure, all of this matter will come to an end once and for all.
All right, so I intentionally asked that question again because, a lot of people would like to know how diplomats will respond to the case now that Atiku has filed for admittance of the documents by the Supreme Court.
Well, like I said, the diplomats have nothing to do with how the Supreme Court will act. It is left for the Supreme Court to decide whether they are going to admit it or whether they are not going to admit it. Even if Supreme Court admits it, you are also still going to prove to the Supreme Court that this is exactly what you want to do. However, it is whatever you're finding, you find, it is how you use it at the end of the day that matters. And like I said, diplomats are not involved in politics. I'm saying this to you again. Diplomats that are in Nigeria, for example, representatives of other countries, they won't get themselves dabbled into what's going on in Nigerian politics, and vice versa. Nigerian diplomats that are outside other countries also don't get themselves involved with what's going on in the politics of the country as well. So we respect those fine lines. We are there to improve relations at government level. Remember, it is the government that we're talking about, not necessarily the individual. The president of Nigeria is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not just, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It's the position that we're looking at. So at that level, you are looking at relations at every level, economic relations. If I'm here and I'm focused on economic diplomacy, for example, it means that I have to help Nigeria and Burundi improve their trade, not to get involved in whether the president of Burundi is qualified to be president or whether the opposition have a case in court. Absolutely no. Even at political level, we have joint commissions, for example, which is basically a memorandum of understanding that is established at government level to allow a working relationship between those countries. None of these issues they are dealt with at government level. They are policy issues and have nothing to do with whatever an individual or whatever the politics of a country is all about.
All right, so now that Atiku Abubakar has approached the Supreme Court, and I must reiterate that for the sake of explanation, what difference can this new evidence make on the case at the Supreme Court?
I'm not a lawyer, and I believe that even the commentary on this is out of, it shouldn't even be in the first instance. He is within his rights, without a doubt. We are a law-abiding nation. Whatever you find, you take it to the court. That's the right thing to do. In fact, calling a press conference on it wasn't even necessary in the first instance. All you do is that you obviously, whatever you have, you take it to the court. But from my layman understanding of whatever these issues are, I don't know that the court will admit new evidence at this level. Supreme Court is not a court of evidence, But like I said, he will apply, he will try. And we are urging him to do so. That's basically the hallmark of democracy. The hallmark of democracy is that we must allow people exhaust whatever it is that they find, and the court will take a decision. And after that point, that's why it's at the tribunal level first. And if you disagree with whatever it is that you have at the tribunal, you also go forward. He is not the only one, in the Supreme Court. The flag bearer of the Labour Party, His Excellency P2B, is also at the Supreme Court, and I think APM have also gone to the Supreme Court. So everybody's there at the Supreme Court. I think all of the three parties that had issues at the tribunal have all filed, to the Supreme Court. So we wait to see the outcome. I'm not against any information he has taken to the court. He's well within his right to do so, and we support him to be able to do so, so that this is how we build and develop our democracy. If the court, there are, maybe the lawyers or the justices know the ground for which they will either accept or reject. I won't comment on it. All I'm saying is that he should do the right thing by filing whatever he has to the Supreme Court, and then we will respect the Supreme Court decision at the end of the day.
All right, so talking about what is right or not, I mean, Atiku says this is a moral issue. And some people have argued that he has no such standing because those who live in glass houses do not throw stones. What's your take on this?
Well, politicians will always be politicians. He's a very respectable individual in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He's a politician, and so are so many of us that are involved. What we find is that we will look for whatever advantages we will find out there, and then we'll use it to the maximum or to the best, to be able to get the kind of traction we choose to get. However, I had the former vice president talk about the fact that he doesn't support Muslim tickets. From his press conference, I obviously saw that he's had a lot of issues with Mr. President, dating back as long as he mentioned them and all of that. Obviously, you don't want anybody to come into that. They are friends, they will resolve at some point. But my view is very simple. The vice president talked about the fact that Nigeria is not right for a Muslim ticket. I agree, but again, I will also put the question to say, okay, it's because Muslim ticket obviously has won the elections, but even if he didn't win the elections, for example, is it also right, for a Northerner to be president and for 8 years and for another Northerner to even attempt to become president for probably another 8 years? So we are saying on the one hand that, Muslim ticket is not right for the country, due to the nature of diversity we have in the country. But are we saying that people from the southern part of the country also don't deserve to be president after an 8 years presidency of a Northerner in Nigeria? A Fulani man for that instance. So after one Fulani man finishes, another Fulani man takes over. Is that now correct? Or is that now right for us in Nigeria? Like I said, politicians will use whatever they choose to, project their cause. But what we continue to do is to remind Nigerians again that politicians will do whatever they need to do. And at this point in time, the most legitimate way of getting yourself to become president or to get into any political office is through the elections. And looking for technical issues, as far as I'm concerned at this point, doesn't make a lot of sense. And he indeed called for coalition for quite a lot of other parties to join him in the struggle. I'm sure you already have had the answers from the people he has called. NNPC have dissociated themselves, and I think also so is Labour Party as well. This is your fight. Go ahead with it. We also have our own cases, and we are pursuing them. What it basically means is that they are saying, no, everybody should carry their cross at this particular point in time. So I will not, come for his jugular for saying what he has said, but it's left for me to also sit down and also, go through, think about what he has said, and also find defenses and also put forward other questions that Nigerians will also consider. So that's basically what I see from all of this. There's nothing wrong with him trying to push his case. It's fine. It's normal. It's democracy. That's how we strengthen our democracy. But at the end of the day, we will also remember, Nigerians should also be told that politicians will always do whatever they need to do to advance their cause. You can say Nigeria is at risk. You can say Muslim ticket is not right. You can say, but at the end of the day, what I felt is that coalition that they are trying to build in Supreme Court would have been much more beneficial if they built it before the elections. I mean, he ran, a few other people ran, so the three of them, NNPP, Labour Party, PDP, put together would have been able to upstage the president, I believe, based on the numbers we had. But they didn't actually come together. So I wonder what this coalition, afterthought coalition, will bring to them at the end of the day. But of course, you can see that they have actually said, no, everybody should carry their cross. Whatever you find, take it to the court. Luckily, the Labour Party and NNPP and even the APM that are in court never went to Chicago State University, so they can't even add this as part of what they are taking to the Supreme Court. Whatever grounds they have, they should go ahead with it. And whatever grounds His Excellency, the former Vice President, has found, he should also go ahead with it. But what is important is that once the Supreme Court gives the ruling, that brings an end to this, and then we can move on and wait for the next round of elections. All
right. Ambassador, let's take a break. I've been speaking with the Nigerian Ambassador to Burundi, Dr. Elijah Onyeagba. Tonight, we're taking another look at President Tinubu's academic record as Atiku heads to Supreme Court. When we return, we'll move on to other issues. Please stay with us.